Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing an adorable shaker card featuring the brand new Flower Market product suite from Pinkfresh Studio. This is brand new and it's a part of their brand new Fables and Forests release, which is available today. To celebrate this brand new release, I am joining Pinkfresh Studio and some crafty friends for a blog hop. So you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below and you can find all the information on the giveaways and more inspiration featuring this release. So this product suite includes a stencil set, a coordinating die set, as well as a stamp set. And I'm going to start out with my stenciling. I'm adding this into my Misty stamping tool with my paper in that lower right-hand corner. And every time I switch out my stencil, I'm just going to put it in that lower right-hand corner. I'm starting out with some ballet slipper ink for the first stencil. For stencil number 2, I'm going to use Coral Reef over this entire awning and the little countertop. And then for the florals that are in the center of this stencil, I'm using a little bit of bubblegum ink with a 1/2-inch blending brush. Now for a lot of the ink blending, I'm using the large 1-inch blending brush from Pinkfresh Studio. This gives me a light, airy blend, and you can definitely build up the color with these brushes, but I find I get a really nice smooth blend because the bristles are not super compact. And if you want to learn more about that, I actually did a live stream all about ink blending and telling you when I like to use particular blending brushes, and I'll put a link to that in the upper right-hand corner. Now for the third stencil, I am using some licorice ink. I wanted to do some black and white pots because I didn't want to bring in another color. Moving through the stencils here, I'm going to use Candy Violet on the florals for this stencil, and then I'm going to use a little Misty Coast to create a shading effect and give these pots a black and white feel. Now, as I mentioned before, you can stamp ahead of time using this set. However, you're going to have to line up your stencils according to the stamping. Instead, I like to do all of my stenciling first and then come in with the stamp afterwards. And I'm going to show you a little trick for positioning your stamp set or your stamp directly on top of your stenciling and making sure you get perfect positioning. For the greenery, I used olive ink, and now I am done with all of my stenciling. I'm going to bring in a sheet of acetate here and place it directly over my stenciled image. Now I'm placing the coordinating stamp from the stamp set over those stenciled areas on my paper. However, because I have that acetate in place, none of the ink that's on my stamp is going to transfer to my cardstock. I'm going to ink up this stamp with some licorice ink and then stamp directly on the acetate that's covering the stenciled image. This allows me to check the placement of my stamp and make sure it's exactly where I want it before I stamp onto my finished project. Now, I didn't like my placement, so I'm just wiping the ink off of the acetate that's in my Misty stamping tool here, and I'm going to reposition this stamp, and then I'll pick it up again with the lid of my Misty stamping tool and stamp on the acetate one more time before I stamp onto my cardstock. I know you see me take it out there, but I actually put it back in the acetate before I stamped onto my final project. I can check the placement, and then I was happy with that. So I'll remove the acetate, re-ink the stamp, leaving everything in place and stamp directly over this image again. And now I have perfect placement of this stamp over my stenciled image. I'm using my Pinkfresh Studio stamp press tool to help me get pressure over the entire stamped area. And now that I'm done with my stenciling and my stamping, I'm going to remove this from my Misty stamping tool and line up the coordinating die to die cut all of these images at once. I used my Anna Griffin Impress machine to do my die cutting today, and you'll notice that I have not only the flower stand, but I also have these greenery pieces at the top, which I'll use to accent my little scene that I'm kind of building. I love that this also cuts out the center portion of the flower stand and all around these little plants here so that you have this nice open area. And I decided to take advantage of that and create a shaker card out of this flower stand. To give a little more dimension to my awning, I'm going to actually use my scoreboard. I'm going to place this awning and I'm going to score at 3/8 of an inch directly across the bottom of this. I learned this trick from my friend Jody as we were live on the Pinkfresh Studio YouTube channel last week, and I thought it was really fun because it creates this dimension in the awning that you don't otherwise have. So a simple little score line at 3/8 of an inch gives you that fold in the awning and makes a perfect little dimensional pop-up. Now, I decided to go ahead and remove this little star garland here because it opens up a little more area for my shaker portion. And on my flower market stand here, I'm going to use the greenery pieces and just kind of tuck them along the side on this right side first. I'm arranging 3 of those pieces. And then on the left side, I'm going to tuck a piece behind that pot and just kind of have it coming out from behind the pot there so that it just gives a little more fullness to this scenery. Now I've also die cut a couple more of the flower stands from some plain white cardstock, and I'm going to stack these up to give it a little more sturdiness and weight and kind of help this stand up with all of the acetate that I'm going to be adding. I just kind of wanted to thicken this up, give it a little more substance. And so these 2 layers are going to stack on top of each other. And then on top of those, I'll add my stenciled and stamped piece. And then that gives it a little more weight on the front of the card and also kind of stabilizes those side portions. Now, Pinkfresh Studio has just released this new heat-resistant acetate, and let me tell you, this stuff is nice. But I did want to point out to you that there is a protective coating on both sides of this. So you'll want to make sure that before you place it on your project that you remove the protective coating from both sides. Otherwise, it's going to look a little frosty. Now I'm leaving it on until I'm ready to put this on to my card project. And I'm cutting a piece that measures about 2¼ inches or 2½ inches by 3½ inches. This is going to be the perfect size to place behind that opening of my flower stand here and create a shaker window. This acetate is not only nice and sturdy, it's a good heavy weight, but it's also heat resistant, which means you can use it for hot foiling and you can also use it for embossing. So keep that in mind. Now that I have my pieces trimmed down, I'm going to remove the backer or the protective coating from both sides of the acetate, and I'm going to adhere this acetate to the back side of my flower stand using some Pinkfresh Studio glue here, and I'm going to place a heavy acrylic block on that while the glue kind of sets up. Then I'll take some foam adhesive strips. These are some thin foam adhesive strips from scrapbook.com, and I'm going to place them around the 3 sides that I have here on the flower stand. So along those side pulls, as well as along the bottom, kind of where the plants meet the countertop. Now that gives me 3 sides of my shaker well that I need, but I need a 4th side. And so on the backer that I've cut to 2½ by 3½ inches, I'm going to place a strip of foam adhesive along the top side of this. And that will kind of lock in all of the areas that I need to keep my shaker guts in place. Before I put this onto the back of my shaker portion, I'm going to blend in a little Ocean Breeze ink using a large 1-inch blending brush. And by the way, that foam adhesive strip at the top, that will be concealed by the awning that I'm going to place over this shaker area. So don't worry about it. Just make sure that it's a nice thin piece of foam adhesive there at the top. For my shaker bits, I'm going to use some sparkling clear confetti here. I'm just sprinkling a little bit of that into the opening there of the shaker well. And once I have that filled, I am going to remove the backer from the foam adhesive around all of the areas that will create my shaker well. And then I'm going to take this backer and place it right along this area. So the top part will be sealed by that foam adhesive that's on the backer, and then the other 3 sides will be sealed by the foam adhesive that's on the back of that flower stand. And you can see I have this adorable little shaker area on this flower market. I placed some of those thin foam adhesive strips on the back side of the fold of my awning so that it kind of steps down to the flower market. And I'm positioning that right over the top where it conceals that foam adhesive that I have behind the acetate, and then everything is neat and tidy. Now for my card background, I am using a brand new cover plate from Pinkfresh Studio. This release includes so many new cover plates and they are all so beautiful and so unique. I'm using the Scallop Glow cover plate here. I've die cut it from some greenery cardstock from the stamp market, and I'm just punching out all those little hanging chads so that I have a nice clean background for my card front. Once my card front is prepped, I'll add some liquid glue on the back side of this and attach it to an A2 size card base. So it measures 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I'll make sure that I press that down so it makes great contact. I'm adding my little flower market to the front of my card using some foam adhesive. And once I get that positioned in the center of the card, I'll push that down and make sure I have that dimension on my awning. I stamped the "You Plant Kindness Wherever You Go" sentiment in some olive ink onto some white cardstock and die cut it using the coordinating die. I stacked a couple die cut layers behind that and attached it to the front of my flower stand. And now I'm finishing off with some green jewels from Pinkfresh Studio. I'm using my dual tip embellishment tool along with some liquid glue to get those positioned perfectly on the front of my card. And that added just a little bit of shine to this card on the outside of the shaker window. So there you have it, a fun little flower market card that features the brand new Flower Market product suite from Pinkfresh Studio's Fables and Forests release. It's available today over on the Pinkfresh Studio site, and I have links to all these products used in this project in the YouTube description below. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Don't forget to head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, a complete list of supplies, as well as information on the blog hop celebrating this brand new release from Pinkfresh Studio. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of my card making, paper crafting, and live stream video tutorials shared here. Thanks again for watching. I'm so glad you're here. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you've made it this far, you are one of my favorites. To subscribe to my channel, go ahead and click the button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.